A man held the door tightly with his feet and covered his son's ears tightly. It was a drunk man outside the toilet who was smashing the door. This is the most desperate moment for a man. He, who has always been strong, also sheds silent tears at this time. They who have no home to return to can only hide in the toilet and spend the night. But you never thought that such a man would soon become a billionaire. This is a true story. A few years ago, Chris also had a fight. He spent all his savings to invest in a batch of ancient density scanners. He and his wife fantasize about a beautiful future life. But reality is always cruel. Although the new generation of scanners is more accurate, the price is twice as expensive. Doctors think this is a luxury item in the instrument. They don't want to buy it. In order to sell, Chris carries an instrument every day, either in the hospital or on the way to the hospital. His monthly sales can only maintain the most basic spending. This time, his car was towed by the police because of too many stops. But he can only watch, because he hasn't sold a car for a long time. On this day, a red sports car stopped in front of him. He enviously asked two questions. What do you do? And how do you do it? I'm a stockbroker. Stockbroker. Had to go to college to be a stockbroker, huh? You don't have to. How to be good with numbers and good with people. From then on, the gears of fate began to turn. A thought came up. Chris plans to interview a stockbroker. But his wife mocked him. Why don't you interview an astronaut? Chris is helpless. Everything he does now is to change his family's life. He can't accept his wife's current attitude. And his wife is also very crazy. He has to work 2 jobs a day to maintain a basic life. The rent has been due for 3 months. He also has to pay $600 in taxes. In the endless quarrels every day, their feelings are gradually broken. The impulse of the heart made Chris come to the financial company again. Looking at the recruitment information on the door, he seemed a little anxious. In order to leave a good image for others, Chris did a stupid thing. He handed the sweeper to a woman who sold singing on the street. But when he just got the application form, he saw that woman ready to run with the sweeper. Chris left in a hurry. This made the man in front of him a little out of his mind. But he couldn't care so much. In a hurry, Chris followed the woman to the subway station. He was about to catch up, but the subway had already started. He lost everything. It's equivalent to losing a month's living expenses. This made the life of the original home even worse. And today's harvest is only an application form. What surprised him was that the financial company selected 20 people out of many applicants every 6 months. And only one of these 20 people was recruited. Chris, who only has high school education, was a little anxious. In order to get the interview opportunity, Chris decided to hand over the application form to the person in charge and introduce himself in detail. He imagined that the other party could give himself a big hug, but the busy manager didn't give him a chance. He just said a few words and left. Chris went back outside. He happened to meet the thief last time. He thought he would never let him run away again this time. He ran all the way to catch up with the bus. He took the instrument back. When his wife saw him take back the 2 instruments, she was disappointed. Today is his son's birthday. His wife was worried. Chris wanted to explain the incident these days, but his wife said he was going to leave. It doesn't matter anymore. He tried to make up for it. He told his wife that he would get better. You said that before. When I got pregnant, it'll be fine. So you don't trust me now? Whatever. I don't care. After his wife left, Chris played with his sons. Gift. In 1981, the Rubik's Cube became a gift. A math professor had to spend 30 minutes to restore it. Maybe it's Chris's talent. There's only one step away from success. That is the Rubik's Cube. It became the turning point of his fate. That day, Chris came to the financial company as usual. He was going to stop the manager from promoting himself again. This was his 10th visit in a month. But the manager was still in a hurry to meet the client. Chris lied that he was on the same way. That's why they got in the car together. He kept introducing himself, but the manager's attention has always been on the Rubik's Cube. Chris took the opportunity to say that he could restore it. In the manager's surprised eyes, he explained the principle while restoring it. He soon restored one side, then the other side. Finally, when he reached the destination, the Rubik's Cube was restored. Chris was also at ease. This was his first time. The manager took over the Rubik's Cube. At the same time, he was interested in the man in black. When he got out of the car, he was still immersed in it. He didn't pay for the car, so he left. Chris asked the driver to turn around. The number of the driver's car kept jumping. He looked at his wallet. The money in it was not enough to pay for the car. Then an idea came up. He held his backpack subconsciously. When the taxi stopped at the traffic light, he immediately opened the door and ran out. But he didn't run out for a few steps. He found that he forgot to bring a sweeper. He turned around and put the device on. The driver didn't let go of his neck. He chased him all the way to the subway station. Finally, at the last moment of the subway gate, Chris ran in, but the sweeper was hanging outside. The old man saw him coming to help, but there was nothing he could do. He had to let go. Because of the car expenses of more than 10 yuan, he lost a month's food expenses. Chris broke down and yelled in the car. Because it was too far from home, he couldn't pick up his son on time for school. He could only call his wife to pick him up. But the news was that his wife was leaving with her son. When he came home, he saw an empty wardrobe. There was no one in the house. At this time, the phone rang. He thought it was his wife. Unexpectedly, the HR manager notified him of the interview. Chris successfully got the interview opportunity. The next day, because he was afraid that his son would be taken away, he came to the kindergarten early to pick him up. At dinner time, a landlord came to urge the rent. He asked him to move out tomorrow. Chris asked again and proposed to help the landlord to paint the wall. It took a week. The next day, Chris was painting the wall. Chris was written on the wall. "You're screwed." The knock on the door rang again. This time it was the police. The previous fine must be settled. Once, he could only open a check. This is all his belongings. I thought I could leave like this. But the check had to be done at the bank tomorrow. He had to stay at the police station. This would miss the time to pick up his son. He could only call his wife and ask her to wait to pick up the child. Tomorrow morning, he was sent to the kindergarten. Who would have thought that his wife was going to take the child away directly? Under Chris's repeated requests, the two agreed to send the child back at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. The next day, after the check was confirmed, Chris dared not stop for a moment. Because it was close to the interview time, he didn't have time to go home and change into decent clothes. He walked in like this. Chris shook hands with the interviewer in a hurry. The boss's face was pale. It was more embarrassing to be the supervisor, because it was Chris whom he highly recommended. No one could understand. No one would dress like this for an interview. Chris told about his experience last night, and the boss was still worried about his dress. Finally, he asked a very tricky question. "Chris, what would you say if a guy walked in for an interview without a shirt on, and I hired him? What would you say?" He must have had on some really nice pants. Chris passed the interview so perfectly. He didn't know until then. The internship period was 7 to 6 months. He didn't have a salary yet. He had to stick to it for half a year without income. He couldn't even guarantee a job in the future. In the current situation, he could only rely on selling the remaining 6 instruments. Use everything to seize the 5% chance. He went home. He brushed off the sentence, "Chris, you're screwed." This also means that he has made up his mind. At night, his wife kept her promise and sent his son back, but he was really going to leave. To save money, Chris took his son to a cheap car hotel. On the weekend, he played basketball with his son. His son said he wanted to be a professional basketball player, but Chris said they're chess pieces and chess pieces. Your level in the future will probably be as bad as mine now. He denied his son's dream like this. Just now, he was having a good time. Suddenly, he lost interest in basketball. He took out the bag and wanted to put it back. And Chris realized that he was wrong. He told his son, "Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. You got a dream. You got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you, you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period." These words are not only for his son, but also for himself now. Soul chicken soup can only be used to encourage. But life has to go on. Chris finally sold another chess piece. And he also started a 20-person internship. On the first day, the office manager told them that the company will provide the contact information of the top 500 employees in the financial sector. Asked them to do everything they can to get these people to invest. And the one who can stay in the end is usually the one who has the most business. Chris is always the first to arrive and the first to leave. He has to finish other people's 9-hour work in 6 hours because he has to pick up his son. In order to save time, he doesn't listen to the phone. He doesn't drink water, so he doesn't have to waste time going to the bathroom because he doesn't know how to refuse. The manager asks him to run errands for himself every day. It's not buying breakfast, it's getting coffee. He hasn't finished a list in 2 months, not to mention recruiting business. So he started trying new ways. Call those company bosses directly. Unexpectedly, it went so well for the first time. The president of the foundation agreed to meet and asked to be there in 20 minutes. This sudden happiness made him a little confused. Chris came downstairs in a hurry. "It's this manager again." He actually asked him to help park the car. And there's something wrong with the door lock of this car. When Chris finally opened the door, the car was occupied. He had to drive to find it, but there was a traffic jam. It was hard to wait for the car in front to go in. In order to save time, he didn't pay for it. He ran all the way to the foundation. When he got there, he was told that the president had left. The opportunity just slipped away. He had to go back and get the car. Just about to open the car door, he found a bill. This made his life difficult. He didn't give up. On the weekend, he came to the president's house. With his son, he wanted to get another chance to meet. He knocked on the door. The president opened the door in person. Chris introduced himself politely and apologized for the previous breach of contract. "I didn't expect the president to take it to heart. He even invited them to watch the game together." Chris accepted it, because this is a chance to get in touch with the upper class. Standing by the president, he packed himself and talked to others. When the game was about to end, Chris took the opportunity again to introduce the president to the company's asset management ability. Obviously, he failed. The president said he wouldn't give his assets to a new manager who just entered the financial industry, or he said he wouldn't. Although he was rejected, he brought important people to Chris. After the game, he got a lot of top players tomorrows. For months later, Chris sold everything. Just when he thought he could live the rest of the 2 months smoothly, a letter broke the silence. The 600 taxes he owed before were forcibly deducted from his account by the government. He went bankrupt again. There were only 20 left. The landlord kept urging him to pay the rent. Life hit him again and again. This day, he took his son to the park to play. The current situation made him a little distracted. The moment he looked up, he saw a homeless man carrying a device. That should be the one. Lost at the subway station. Chris ran over to stop him and took the device back. In the car, he kept wiping the dirty place because it was their next 2 months' living expenses. In this way, Chris set foot on the road of sales again. Life seemed to be kidding him again. When he showed it to the doctor, he found that the device seemed to be broken. No matter how he set it up, it didn't work. He was in a hurry and talked nonsense. The doctor seemed to have seen his situation. He said he would buy it if it was fixed. Chris just gave up. When the father and son returned home, they found that the luggage was thrown out the door. He took out the key to open the door. He found that the door lock was changed. The window was also sealed. He never thought he would end up like this. They came to the subway station without a home. His son asked where we were going. Chris could only wander there helplessly. Finally, he turned the scanner into a time machine and said he could take them to the place he wanted to go. His son pressed the button. Oh my goodness. Open, open, open. He created an imaginary world. Then he took his son to the bathroom step by step. He locked the door. He wanted his son to think that they hid in the cave to avoid dinosaurs, instead of sleeping in the bathroom. The next day, he came to the church to line up to fight for a free bed. The financial crisis has made the poor more and more poor. The number of homeless people is increasing. It's almost time to line up. The people in the church came out and said there were only 4 beds left. A homeless man suddenly appeared in front of him. Chris had a dispute with him. After being pulled away by the person in charge, he wanted to drive them away. This broke Chris very much. I was here first. They told me that we had to be here on time. I got here on time. I was in line. I came from work. I got my son. I was here on time. We were here on time. Fortunately, the uncle next to him helped. This made them have a place to sleep at night. He coaxed his son to sleep. Chris came outside, opened the scanner, and found the broken parts. Then he prepared for the exam under the moonlight. From that day on, he took his luggage to the company every day. As soon as he got off work, he took his son to the bus station to line up for the bed. It was finally the day of the theoretical exam. Although there was plenty of time, Chris was the same. As usual, after the exam, he handed it in directly and went out. He came outside. Just when the boss got out of the car, he forgot to borrow money from Chris. Looking at the only cash in his wallet, he hesitated. In the end, he still borrowed 5 yuan from the boss. And life will always be a mess. There was no line for the bed at night. Chris bought a subway ticket. He spent the night in the car. He had no way to go. He sold his own blood. In exchange for 24 yuan, he spent 8 yuan to buy parts for the scanner. Today is lucky. They lined up for a bed. Chris came to the corner of the wall to exchange for the broken part, but he didn't know if he could use it. He pressed the button. The light shone on the whole room. It also shone on his worried heart. The doctor kept his promise. He bought a scanner. This also means that he officially said goodbye to his previous life. That night, they stayed in a hotel. The bed is there, and the father and son have been together. The last day of the 6-month internship. The connections of the president of the foundation eventually brought him a business of 3.1 billion yuan. He called to thank the people who supported him. At this time, the manager called him over. He knew that there was a result. His wife asked him if he didn't think it was a step back from salesman to an intern. And now, he should be able to give an answer. Would you like that, Chris? Yes, sir. Good. We couldn't be happier. So, welcome. He held back his tears and walked out of the office. He walked into the crowd. Among the crowds, Chris raised his hand and applauded for himself. That silent applause was a celebration for himself. A person can realize his dream happiness. Will knock on the door. Many people tend to pay attention to the tree of dreams and ignore the hardships of the process. Especially when facing a seemingly hopeless reality, how many people will persist and how many people will give up? Life is always correcting and reminding us that people who adapt to the tide are always more likely to reach the other side of the success. But there are indeed some people who are willing to go against the current.